any discussions about salaries, wages, or conditions have to be in an open meeting.
I'm trying to listen to you and trying to do this, so I'm going to ask her to do this and listen to you.
Okay, here, I'll that section in blue right there.
I see that.
Oh, that's the one they just passed out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But you can keep that one, and I'll grab another copy. In fact, I might suggest we update council package with the meeting.
It's right here.
Oh.
I know that one.
Betty, is there something you're looking for that we can help you find?
The question I believe that he's asking about is a special meeting, adding something to the agenda, a special meeting, because it has to be on the agenda in order for you to talk about anything if you're having a special meeting. If it's a regular meeting, you can change your agenda. When it's a special meeting, it's required that the complete agenda be posted and given to the media, and if it's not on the agenda, then you can't discuss it.
Is this an agenda item, though, or an executive session discussion of the items on the agenda?
It's not an agenda item.
It's not having it on the agenda, right?
We wanted to, apparently there was question whether we can go into executive session to discuss the qualifications of the applicant.
Absolutely, you can go into executive session to discuss qualifications.
We can add that to our agenda, because
Well,
we can't add the executive session to the agenda.
I don't believe you can, but I'm not an attorney.
Ken, do you know, in order to recess to executive session, does executive session need to be on the council's agenda?
I do not believe it has to be, but in all candor, with the tenor of everything that's been said and written in the last few days, if the mayor is going to object to the adding of an executive session to discuss the qualifications of the people that are applicants, then I would suggest to put it over. The reason I say that is that it's my belief, but I do not have authority to say so, that an executive session can be added for any item that is already on the agenda. This matter is on the agenda, and I believe that we can discuss it in executive session. However, with everything else that's going on, it's a minefield, and I feel very uncomfortable going around his request at this time.
Okay.
Then I, with that into consideration and the fact that we cannot communicate this issue, then I feel uncomfortable as a council member in voting. I will consider a continuation of this meeting until, well, no, I'm not even gonna do that, because if we can't do executive session, then there's no consideration in my part in voting for these positions. If we can't have a candor communication between the council about the qualifications using executive session, then there's no point in my mind even discussing jobs, or at least vote on them.
The issue before the council is there an agenda item for filling of the posted positions? The answer is yes. Can you have an executive session regarding the qualifications of those people? The answer to that is yes. The question is, can you add an executive session to an item that's on the agenda? I believe you can, but with the circumstances that are surrounding everything else, I cannot say that that would be a valid activity of this council. My recommendation is you put the meeting over, add the executive session to eliminate that issue from any further litigation or pleadings or confrontation that does occur, so the council is protected.
Just, can I, you say, go ahead.
So, while we're discussing this, I looked up RCW 4230.110, and it says, nothing contained in this chapter may be construed to prevent a governing body from holding an executive session during a regular or special meeting. And it goes on to list the allowed purposes for an executive session, which includes what we talked about, evaluating the qualifications of an applicant for public employment. So I think we can. I don't see anything in here that requires that an executive session be placed on the agenda. I mean, maybe there's case law about it that we're not aware of.
I agree, but as we're aware, there are certain...
Just a minute.
Hey.
You didn't ask for the floor. I'm taking the floor now. We're having, you're requesting an executive session to reaffirm the qualification of the applicants?
Discuss the qualifications of the applicant.
That's
Yes.
it. Okay. Your packet, you had your packet with all the qualifications and the resume of each applicant. Why do we have to have an executive session?
As you know, it's illegal for us to have met and discussed any of this outside of session. So we've had the information individually, but council has not had the opportunity to discuss the qualifications. That's the purpose of having council meetings, is so that we can act together instead of individually.
Okay, so therefore, if we're going to have the meeting, that means that the council will not give the consent as the applicant takes the floor.
Either that, or we'd have to have individual executive sessions for anyone that somebody wanted to discuss on. I think it would be quicker to have all of them appear and have questions and then have one session.
Well, this meeting is to have the council confirm the applicant, and then we can move forward. You people, the council, have had the packets with all the resume and all the information that's necessary. And I think I want this meeting to move forward, to have the council consent the applicant so we can respond and comply to the writ of mandate. I oppose the executive session because I feel that with the session, the council is deferring from making the decision of consent for me to hire these people. Okay.
I think an executive session is entirely prudent for the council to do, and it sounds like there's a little bit of misunderstanding. I think we intend to go to executive session to discuss the qualifications and then come back out and vote on those. We're not, I don't think anybody, if we can have an executive session, then we'll have the vote. I think that's what I'm hearing from council members. Am
I understand where you're coming from, but what's the use of us giving you this packet and with a complete resume, and you can't make a decision for consent? Okay, we're going to executive session without your consent, and after the executive session, I would ask you to conduct your consent for each applicant. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, we believe that we have a right in executive session to discuss the qualifications of each candidate for the position they're applying for. And that's what an executive session would be allows us to do. Then we come out and we have an open discussion about anything other than their qualifications, including consideration of them for the job.
After the executive session?
No.
No?
Now, and then go to executive session, discuss, come back out and vote.
Okay. Let's start on with the meeting and your executive session after the candidates have stood on the platform and answer your questions. The first person that I asked for it would be Patty Kirkpatrick for City Clerk. And I'd like to say just a few words. Patty has a master's in municipal court for a municipal clerk certification. She's also certified for municipal court for the public courts, I believe. And I'd like to say another thing, that this is the first time we've had a master's municipal clerk as an applicant for employment. Patty Kirkpatrick, would you give a brief resume of yourself, very brief, and let
Absolutely.
the council ask you questions.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor and council members. It's nice to be here this evening, as well as to the press. My name is Patty Kirkpatrick. I have been in the municipal clerk industry for 12 years. I started out in Kodiak, Alaska as an assistant clerk and worked my way up to deputy clerk, switched over to the city of Kodiak, so I worked in what's considered the county, and then also over in the city side. Received my certified municipal clerk designation in 2002, and then I moved to Washington State in 2007 and finished my master municipal clerks. I did 4.5, almost 5 years at the city of Port Orchard, and I'm currently, well, I'm going to be currently working for you, I hope. But I am right now employed with the King County Office of the Presiding Judge in District Court. I can go into more detail on my qualifications or specifically answer your questions.
Any questions from the council?
The only question, first off, welcome.
Thank you.
The only question I have, well, right now anyway, is why did you choose to apply for this job here at City Pacific?
That's an easy one. I love being a municipal clerk. I know that sounds really sick, but I'm just one of those people that can't get enough. My forte is in public records and records management, as well as the day-to-day duties of a city clerk, making sure that the council and the mayor and the staff are working closely together, as well as with your public. I consider myself a liaison with all elected officials. It is my responsibility to treat each and every elected official equally, fairly, and impartially, as well as to ensure that your goals and objectives are being met.
Just one, how is it you happen to be working as a court assistant at the moment if you prefer city clerk? Is that just Port Orchard?
The mayor, we had an election. It was kind of contentious, and the current mayor did not care for the former mayor, and you know, he only lost by 5 votes, so it was really close, and hard feelings. Didn't feel because I was the city clerk assistant to the mayor that I could separate and become his assistant, so he exercised his at-will rights.
So our position here is certainly the city clerk, and I'm happy to see your experience with public records. That was actually going to be one of my questions, so I'll skip to number 2. our position is also, it's city
Personnel.
clerk and personnel manager. Can you talk about, I think you've clearly got experience on the city clerk side of it. What about kind of the personnel, and there was also a strong element of kind of risk management, frankly, for lack of another better suited contact.
Sure.
Talk about your experience there.
Okay, I didn't really go way far back in my history. I mean, I've got over 25 years working in this business as an administrative or executive assistant, however you want to call it. I started out way back when working for the AAA insurance company as an insurance underwriter, selling personal lines insurance. I worked for a claims adjusting firm in California that processed auto claims and accidents. And then I worked for an independent insurance adjuster also in California, selling personal lines and mobile agricultural equipment insurance. And then I moved into Oregon on the coast, and I started doing legal secretary paralegal work for I've got about 8 years of paralegal work. And so I worked for 3 different law firms. The most recent was in Illinois, which was family law and general practice. From there, I got into municipal government. So with all of that, over the years, you just kind of, as a city clerk, you just learn by osmosis a lot about personnel matters. I'm not by any means a pro. I have a lot to learn, and I won't lie to you about that. But I have managed and supervised an HR coordinator position at the city of Port Orchard. So I do understand workers' compensation, I understand your Family Medical Leave Act, your FSLA, COBRA insurance, your dealing with employees on grievances, and, just bringing people together is what I really try to focus on, and try to make sure that we're all working as a team and however we can do that. So do I have a lot to learn in that area? Absolutely, but I have every confidence that I will show you that I can be good at this.
So you mentioned grievances. How much experience have you had working with different unions?
In Alaska, as you know, a city clerk is not a union position. So when I was the deputy clerk, I was serving on the union committee in Alaska for the borough, for the Kodiak Island borough. And through that, I looked at it from the perspective of not only ensuring that the organization was being protected, but the union employees and ultimately myself were being protected as well. So I sat in with the mayor, the manager, the committee, and as a representative of the union, and ensured that everybody was working together to try to resolve the issues. So I was a part of that. And then I became a union employee in the borough for a short time. And so I got to see it from the other angle as far as, what it's like to be a union employee. So I have met with and worked with on union contracts, but not, Port Orchard had a police, court clerks, and the public works. They had 5 contracts. And the city at that time had the finance committee, one person from the finance committee, the police chief, and our personnel attorney for the city of Port Orchard. They were the ones that did the negotiations.
How far will you be commuting daily?
It's about a 45-minute drive from doorstep to doorstep.
Is that across the bridge you take?
Yes.
Any other questions?
James and Leanne still online. Tell us about how you build and maintain relationships, working
You
relationships.
got all night?
Yeah.
Well, nobody likes confrontation, and nobody likes to be the bearer of bad news, and nobody likes to get in the middle of a dispute. But when you have to do those things, you just need to sit down and listen to both sides. I've always been told that there's 3 sides to every story. There's your side, my side, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. So I've always tried to take that approach when dealing with grievances or employees and staff that are having a hard time working with each other or working with their supervisors. And at the City of Port Orchard, I have a lot of the division directors come to me and seek out my advice on how to handle some employee situations. And most of them, they took the advice and they were, well received, and staff, were able to work past some of their issues. I won't say that, everybody's going to be in happy land and we're all going to sing Kumbaya at the end of the day, but I will say that, somewhere in there's a middle ground and you just have to help the parties reach that. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
And I have one more if somebody else does. How did you hear about this position?
Oh, running my fingers through the Association of Washington Cities JobNet.
So if we went to, this is actually one of my favorite interview questions, if we went to either your current or former coworkers and asked them to give us your 2 greatest strengths in the workplace and your 1 greatest challenge, what do you think they would say?
Nothing like putting someone on the spot. Well, I would hope that they would say my greatest strengths are that I'm very organized and that I can get the job done. Maybe something that's a challenge for me is always trying to do too much. So not doing a few things well, but trying to do everything well would probably be the biggest challenge. I'm an overachiever, I'm sorry. I'll admit it freely.
Is there a second strength you wanted to
Oh, a
go
second
with?
strength.
I always try to
Yeah,
choose strengths.
I know, it's hard to do though when you're on the spot. Boy, just very organized and have things put together. I look at things as very compartmentalized and everything has this nice neat little place, whether it's in my head, on paper, in the computer, or floating around the office. It'll look very neat and organized.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Patty.
Thank you.
Next person is Betty Garrison, Finance Director. I'd like to say that she's very highly qualified. For the past 9 months, she steered the city financial department with an exemplary example. She is well qualified and Betty, can you say something? We all know about you because you've been with us for about 8-9 months.
6 months.
So let's get with the questions of the council.
Can we have her give a brief kind of rundown of her resume like Patty did? Sorry.
Okay.
Can we ever do a brief rundown since the audience may not necessarily know her?
What did he say?
He wants her to talk about herself for a couple of minutes.
Okay, I was born and raised in
Well, we know
Alaska.
all about you, but go ahead and talk about yourself.
Born and raised in Alaska, moved to Washington for the second time in the early 80s. My experience, I worked, and I'll just hit the highlights, it's 10 years at Employment Training Center of Alaska as a bookkeeper. Moved to Washington, was a bookkeeper for Shared Health Services in Tacoma for 3 years, and then I worked for Becker Trucking as bookkeeper office manager for 10 years. And then I went to work for the city of Roy because I didn't like the commute to Seattle. And I worked as the city clerk treasurer in Roy for 11.5 years. At that point, during those 11.5 years is when I received my certified municipal clerk certification and my certified public finance administrator certification. The city of Tenino called me in when I was working in Roy and asked me to come to work for them, and I made the choice to do that because it was a larger jurisdiction with more opportunity for growth and challenges. And I worked for the city of Tenino for 10 years, and they too had an election, and I did not fit the new mayor's idea of a clerk treasurer that he wanted working. So he let me go, and then I got a call from Pacific, and they asked me if I was willing to come in and help them out, and I came in, and you gave me the position of interim city treasurer, which I've been doing for the last 10 years. It's been quite the 10 years, 6 months. 6 months.
It only feels like 10 years.
It does. So it's been quite a challenge, and there are still a lot of challenges to meet.
Any other questions? Dave?
So I've got a couple. I'm going to first build off of one that Trent said to Patty. Certainly the last several months, many months, have been unique around the city of Pacific. What strategies have you used to navigate that and ensure that business gets done? How have you made that as successful as it appears to have been?
Well, I hope it's been successful. I have concentrated very strongly on staying in my little corner and getting the job done rather than getting involved in politics. It's been a challenge at times. Used to being the clerk treasurer, there have been a lot of times when I've wanted to jump into things that were outside of my authorized authority, and I've tried real hard to stay in my little corner. There's a lot of things that need to be done. I have relationships with the state auditor and neighboring jurisdictions that have helped. I'm a hard worker, and I like things to be neat and tidy, and when things don't balance, I have a problem going to sleep at night.
Can I follow up with another one? I'll ask you the same. If we were asking your current or former coworkers, what would they say your two greatest strengths and your own greatest challenge in the workplace would be?
I believe that my strengths are integrity and honesty, dedication. Oops, that might be more than two. Sorry. It all kind of jumbles together, ethics in the workplace. The biggest challenge is to go home at night. You can ask my husband, he'll tell you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the council? Questions? Thank you very much.
No, you're not off the hook yet. Considering that we brought you in as an interim treasurer, what difference and how do you feel that your qualifications have changed to satisfy the financial director's position?
I don't believe that my qualifications have necessarily changed. I was qualified to take a finance position when I first came on board, but you already had a finance director, and only one was budgeted and adopted, so you couldn't have two. That's what I was told when I was hired originally. Therefore, I was brought on as an interim treasurer.
Any other questions from the council?
Well, it's kind of the same question that John had. When you and I have had spoke in the past, I'm puzzled. You told me you weren't qualified to be a finance director. And so that's why, that you didn't have the qualifications that we require for the finance director. That's why I'm just kind of questioning. And when we brought you on, it was because our finance director was leaving. And so we brought you in as the interim treasurer because that's what you were qualified for, was my understanding. I could be wrong, but I believe that was my understanding at the beginning, that you didn't have all the qualifications.
I think if you look at my resume and my application and you compare it to your job applications, you'll find that my qualifications exceed what you're asking for. The only thing that I didn't have was a CPR card. And when I was first called, Mariah wasn't leaving yet. She didn't decide to leave until about 2 weeks later. I didn't start until after she had made up her mind to leave.
Any other? Right.
So you've been around a while, so you get some of the more fun questions. what do you see as our biggest challenge? Not the obvious, but in the obvious. What do you see?
What would that be, Trey?
I'm just throwing things. There could be a couple things. I don't know. But what do you see as your biggest challenge up in the front office, and how do you see us overcoming that in the next 60, 90 days? Or longer?
Well, you're not going to make more hours in a day. The biggest challenge that I've had probably since I've been here is staff being gone. There's been some extended periods of time without staff. And that has been a challenge because it means that everybody gets over tasks. And when you're trying to catch up and you're trying to clean up what it's taken 10 years to create, that's the biggest challenge. It's not all done yet. There's still a lot of work to be done.
And what do you, tell us about your approach to conflict resolution. So with employees, with customers, with elected officials, not that that would ever happen.
I hope not. I think the main thing is to communicate and to be willing to listen to both sides. In order to resolve any conflict, you have to be able to communicate, and communicate is not just talking, it's also listening. And it's also doing your homework, finding out the answers, finding out what the regulations are, finding out. A lot of times in a position as finance director or treasurer, whichever you want to call it, it's the same finance position, and a lot of times the job is to say no. For whatever reason, it's not in the budget, the cash flow's not there, you're too far extended, whatever the reason is, and that's a hard thing for anybody to hear. But if it's in black and white, it makes it a little easier. And what I work with, working with numbers, is working black and white. You can't pull them out of the sky.
Any other question? Comment?
You've been here for 6 months. Your ideas and what you, as finance director, how do you see your department moving forward? What do you see you can do to prepare the finance department for the future for the city?
Well, ever since I've been brought on, it's been repeated by council that I was not a finance director, was not a department head, and as such I wasn't able to take some action that a finance director would have taken. I wasn't able to respond to some inquiries. I had to turn it over to someone else because I didn't have the authority to move forward. As finance director, I would have that authority. I could respond to things.
So, other than, I'm just going to counter with, other than being responsive to impacts and issues, we talked about the head count issues, the difficulty with the amount of hours to get the work done, you're behind the schedule. So what do you see putting in place as the finance director to try to get your department on top of what's going on and to move forward? I mean, I know what you just said, but most of that's a reactionary, what you would do if you could in the last 6 months. I'm asking now, if you're out of the finance director, what do you think you will want to do in the future?
Well, I think one of the other changes, John, that's coming up is the fact that if you have staff, there's a lot of things that have come into the finance department that are not finance department work. It would be really nice to get it out of the finance departments and off of my desk and back over to Public Works. That's one of the big things that's going to free up my time. The other thing that I see happening is getting staff to be in the office working as much as possible so that we have a full staff. I think the main thing is working together, working with the other department heads, working with the mayor, working with finding out what it is that council's looking for.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Council? By the council? Thank you very much, Barry. The next to be called up is Cheryl Pinal. I'd like to say a few words from what I know of her and my interaction with her on the city businesses. She's highly qualified and has all the attributes. In fact, not only all, she has more to offer to the Department of Community Service Director. Cheryl, can you
Okay.
give us a brief about
A little bit about me. Like Patty, I actually started in the insurance industry. So I was in the insurance industry for about 10 years. The last 11 years, I was a partner and owned a large private practice counseling group. I was all business. I did the building of the business, contracting, credentialing, grant writing, that all HR, taxes, finance, everything.
Well, I'd like to add one more thing. She's been the Community Service Director for 3 months and have done an excellent job. And that should be one of her qualifications.
And prior to that as well, I did volunteer, as you guys know, and applied and received a grant for the city through the United Way for the summer meals program for the kids. That did not come to fruition because of basically it wasn't moved forward after we received the grant. And I wasn't here.
Is there any questions from the council? Okay.
Same question. You got a head start.
I know.
I should ask 3 and 2 now.
Oh, I know. One of my biggest strengths that has really helped me in the community services position is contracting and contract compliance. To me, and even in my negotiations with personnel, yes, there is 2 sides, but there's also the rules. There's policies, there's procedures, there's contracts, and it is what it is. So my strength is putting policies and procedures in place and contract compliance. My weakness is self-care. I, like Betty, don't go home. I don't stop working. I feel bad. I have a hard time with empathy versus sympathy because I want everything to happen tomorrow. And one thing I've learned in city government is nothing moves quickly. And that's been a hard lesson. Patience, basically, for things to change. But they have changed, and they've changed for the better. So.
Can you tell us about your experience with working with union workers, since both of your employees are union?
Because both of my, you know what, I do not have experience working with union workers. I have experience with personnel, and I've managed up to 50 employees before. And that has been a complete learning process for me, reading the union agreements, the rules and regulations, going through the hiring process of hiring one already, the grievance process and whatnot, that basically you do that union or not. So that was a lot the same. You just have to follow their their rules and procedures. But to me, it is basically taking the experience that I have and applying the union contract to it.
We're going to have a city clerk HR manager, as well as your position permanently filled, and with prior experience in union labor relations. Would you be open to training in that, either with the clerk or with our insurance company? Has a wide range of loss prevention training for people adapting to new roles, and that's certainly something that they would be really happy to avoid grievances on.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me.
So Cheryl, I hope I'm not putting you on this spot, but when you and I talked a while ago, you weren't interested in this as a permanent position. Can you explain to me what changed your mind?
Definitely. I was told the position was different than what it is. And when I actually got into the position, I was told it was more the person who is facilitating and participating in programs and services. Whereas I'm a person who goes out and I find programs and services, I develop programs, I find the funding, I do the grant writing. If someone comes to me and says, this is what I want to do, I figure out a way to do it, I document it, I put the right people in place, and they provide the services. Originally, I was told that position is more service provider. And then getting in, taking the interim position to help solidify contracts and get the city in compliance with certain contracts that are serving the community, and reading the actual job description and getting into the position itself truly is one that develops the programs, develops the funding, finds the funding, increases services using the funding and programs versus being out there facilitating the programs, which is what I do. And so it really was a misunderstanding of what the job truly was. The community services assistant is more of the person that actually is participating in groups or facilitating or beginning the facilitating of the groups. I've built relationships, there's great people, but I am not intricately involved in actually providing the services to the community. I am the one intricately involved in putting the contracts in place, the services, building the programs, increasing utilization, contract compliance, and finding the funding to serve the people.
May I follow up? So I just wanted to follow up. So based on, Cheryl, I've had many conversations, but based on some changes that we tried to implement there at the senior center as far as a director position or manager position, and then have an assistant and a activities coordinator. Do you feel having those two positions that you would be able to not be so involved? I mean, you know what I mean, as far as the one-on-one with the senior center?
Definitely, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have, and that's one thing that I was able to discover getting in and actually doing the job with the right people in place. There is enough time for that position to make community connections, do the networking, find grants, because I've been able to do that already. I'm not always intricately involved. I think that the key to the success in increasing programs and utilization of our community buildings, our facilities, our public facilities, is truly having the right people in place. People who do have the qualifications and the abilities to fulfill the jobs and the needs of the people. And also, having said that, evaluating the services we are providing and putting boundaries back in place to reestablish the roles and the boundaries in the services that we want to provide, and making sure that we're licensed and credentialed and insured to provide services that we want to provide, or hire or contract or bring programs in to do those services for which we cannot. And I think that because they have crossed over in some areas and enmeshed a little bit, it took more labor hours and is taxing on the employees. And so in reviewing of the contracts and getting into contract compliance and putting policies and procedures in place and reestablishing roles and proper, appropriate boundaries, I think it is doable.
Talked a lot about roles, establishing goals and guidelines, stuff like that, but we're still a small city, small community, and the interaction requirements of the community service director is still a personable one-on-one.
Sure.
Because you have the senior center and the youth committee, youth services. So what do you find in that is your weakness, and what can you do to modify? Because
Well, I don't see it as a weakness. I'm able, because I do already socialize with them. The difference is the expectation that I sit and actually socialize or participate in their activity for 2 to 4 hours. I think that was the difference. When I first came in, it was, well, you're not available. You need to sit and socialize, and for how many hours am I supposed to do this? And so there was that unclear, well, okay, but I can't do all of these, the scope of work that was provided, and socialize 4 hours a day. So there's been able to be more of a compromise as I got to know people. It did take time at first. I do socialize with them. I do participate, but their services and their groups or their activities not dependent on me to be there or my facilitating of it, which is the way it should be. Because there should be multiple activities, multiple programs going on because we have the facilities to do it. And the growth of the activities surrounding both sides of the house, the youth side and the senior side, should not be dependent on an employee being there. They're volunteer ran, most of them. Not that we wouldn't be there, but we drop in, we say hello, we may play one game, but then we move on to the next, or we check. Our job is to make sure the facilities are there and the city is supporting them and they have what they need for the activity to occur. And there should be multiple things, and that's part of the growth process that we need. We need to bring the community out and bring everybody back together and have multiple things going on at once instead of one key focus. We are a small city, but we have a lot of stuff going on. We have a lot of people who frequent these centers, and there's still so many more programs and so many more activities we could put in place. And it requires the staff to be on site and for oversight and make sure that these programs and activities have the support that they need, but not that we are the ones facilitating those programs. Does that make sense?
You know, conflict resolution is a big part of the job. You know, and people's feelings can get hurt real easily, and people can feel like they're being not heard or they're put out.
Right.
And so your view on how to deal with those conflict resolutions, and what's your approach to it?
Well, I agree with hearing both sides. Everyone wants to be heard. First of all, you do listen. Regardless, my opinion doesn't matter. Just like with the politics, we keep it outside. Everybody knows in the community centers, politics stay outside because we have vulnerable adults and children. But what you listen to both sides, and it's funny that, interesting you bring this up, because there was a situation where they accused me of not listening, but it was not within my authority to make a decision. They each had their own opinion, and there was a policy and procedure in place for the contractor. And I encouraged them to go to the contractor's boss and seek out a resolution. I did not have the power to control or decide what this contractor would do or how this contractor would behave. So I encouraged them to go to the outside contractor, and when we spoke, we were able to, he offered to come in, great, come on in, let's talk about this. And knowing that, we were able to talk it through, find out that yes, in fact, that citizen could have what they wanted, but we were able to do it using the policies and procedures in place without me overstepping my authority, because it was not my employee, it was not my program, but I was able to get my citizen what they wanted without taking sides, without playing favorites, without not listening to someone else who might not want the same thing that citizen wanted. My job is to listen and to accommodate, but I have to accommodate thinking of everyone, the betterment of everyone. And it can't be a pick or choose situation, especially in an area where I have no authority to give them what they want. So in that incident, I was able to bring in the contractor and utilize their own policies and procedures to rectify the situation, which happened to end up giving the citizen exactly what they wanted. and not jeopardizing our relationship with that program, and actually calming things down with the employee of that contractor. Calming the relations between the individuals within 72 hours.
Any other questions, John?
The job requires education and experience requirements. minimum.
Education or experience.
Huh? Yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know, a 4-year degree in social sciences, business, or related fields, or 4 more years of progressive, responsible experience in human and social services. So I'm going to ask the question, you know, consider that you don't have a degree in those fields, where do you feel you gained the
Where did I
experience?
get my experience? Well, like I said, I owned a private practice counseling group, and we provided counseling to many different areas, different groups of people. And I had to train and develop employees. And I sought out programs, developed programs, and trained. And it was management of people that I was able to learn, I think with that, as well as staffing of cases, being on boards, that I was able to learn really how to managing people and behaviors, and learning from the psych world, the social services world, dealing with social workers, families, military, PTSD. I mean, we went from all spectrums to the walking worried. You learn how to deal with people, and how to resolve conflicts, and how to negotiate, how to respect others, regardless of your thoughts, your behaviors, your political views. I mean, you learn how to set it aside and manage, and basically that's what I did. I managed and grew a large business too, and always have had professionals that I managed in large numbers.
Since you've been with us for a while, what do you think your biggest accomplishment is in the center? And then what are a few challenges that you see facing?
My biggest accomplishment? I would say contract resolution, because we did stand to lose some contracts. I've negotiated the contracts, I've put policies and procedures in place, and regained the confidence of of the people we hold contracts with. I'm also moving forward with getting our computer lab up and running and hooking up the fiber optics. And the biggest challenge for me would be segregation. And I think that, again, bringing the community out and bringing the community together and back together, and healing the wounds, and setting aside differences to enjoy community again. Because what I've experienced being employed here for 3 months is not what I remember Pacific being growing up here as a kid. And that's sad. It's sad to me. So I came back I came and volunteered, and then when I took this position, I knew, when I came to volunteer, I had no idea who I was and anything that was going on. But I took the position because it needed someone in there who could handle the job. And thick skin is an understatement with what I've gone through. And I think that, I know that it's because it's my hometown that I stuck it out. And I'm trying to make it better for my employees, so that they'll stick it out, because this is not their hometown. They're not vested like I am. So I want it to be different, and I remember it different, and I know and I've seen it to be different.
So keep your thick skin on, because you've been here for 3 months, and so you've got the advantage of having a bit of experience being in this position, but you've also got a track record, both, it can be an equity or an asset or a liability. That program, that department, candidly, at least from this chair, for me, seems like one catfight after another. And to be fair, it started long before you came on board, but I think also, to be fair, it hasn't stopped since you've gotten here.
Right.
How do you fix that? How do you get that buy-in? I mean, having a business background, I think it's great, and I love hearing you talk about policies and procedures, and that resonates with me as well with a business background. The challenge, though, is that's not a business.
Right.
And the top-down policies and procedures, they can sometimes work, but they don't always get that buy-in that eliminates those.
And quite bluntly, that's what it's missing. Because what we have, the cat fights, you're right, they haven't stopped. And my approach to those cat fights is to solve them using policies and procedures, because that's my job. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a mediator, and I'm not a referee, although those are the places I've been put. So first of all, from a policy and procedure standpoint, I will tell you I'm moving forward with a code of conduct, because it's not appropriate to treat any citizen, let alone a city employee, the way that I've been treated and my employees have been treated. So having that said, if it's posted and it's followed and everybody agrees and everyone is supporting everybody, there's not people on different sides of the spectrum, that will start to dissipate as far as these are the expectations in public places. Now, on the flip side, as far as making friends, the cat fights are specific people. The cat fights are specific individuals that I listen to, but before I do, to give somebody something or to give in to something, first of all, I do listen, unless you're screaming at me, cussing at me, or ready to hit me, which has been a lot of the case in these cat fights. So I have developed many relationships. I have had letters come in. People are coming back who have not been in the center for a while. And those people who I do have that have the cat fights or whatnot, they're neat people. They're very fun people. And that's what I tell them. What are you doing? You're so fun to have here. Why are you doing this? And I think that it's certain behaviors have been allowed for a long time, and change is hard. Because I have heard that being treated this way actually is, a long-standing occurrence for all the directors who come into this position. How do I see mending that? Is meeting them, listening to them and meeting their needs. But meeting their needs in the way that I have the power and authority to do so. And that's what I've done so far.
Any other questions from the council? None? Thank you very much. The next person, I don't see him in the audience, is Ken Burnett, and I can't explain why he isn't here. And,
He had to deliver a vote and couldn't make the meeting tonight.
he has to what?
Deliver a vote,
Deliver a vote.
so he couldn't be at the meeting today.
We're gonna get that much rain.
Deliver a vote.
Yeah, that's why he's not here.
I,
Mr. Mayor, I just recommend that ask him to come to the next workshop meeting so we could have an interview with him. And then,
thank you for the suggestion. After he delivers his vote, I'll have a talk with him.
So was it executive session before the next topic on the agenda?
So did you want to postpone his consideration then?
Yes, postpone his consideration for the next workshop.
Okay. So now we're
Do we
So we'll go into executive session to consider these applicants. And it's probably gonna be, how much time do you think we're gonna need?
How much time do you think we'll have for the executive session? executive session.
Start out half an hour
John?
increments?
That's all right, we could start off with.
How long?
30 minutes.
20 minutes?
30.
We could do that too. Yeah, I don't know if we want to adjust. The suggestion from Mr. Lewis was that we move to the next item and do executive session and the voting at the end.
That would save us paying for more hours of attorney time.
Really, you wouldn't sit through the
It
executive
has
session?
been moved and second that we go into the insurance.
No, we talked about talking about this first and then go to executive
Yeah,
session.
that's fine, so you on the docket.
So, the next item on the agenda before we go into executive session then is discussing the insurance and disincorporation is what we have on the agenda. Do you have copies for all of them? The insurance one.
Maybe let's just talk about the issue first one.
So,
Will you open up the Thursday meeting?
yes. So we have two different resolutions that we want to bring forward tonight regarding how the city is going to be able to move forward. Thursday, myself, Mayor Sun, our attorney, Ken Luce, Mayor Sun's attorney, and we had two representatives from the insurance company, Bill Ritchie and Wes, oh my gosh, I can't remember his last name. Anyway, he is the board for the Canfield Insurance Company. He's the chair of the board, sorry. So we had a discussion about what it was going to take to keep the city of Pacific insured. And to make a long story short, what it boiled down to is what they said is what we're going to need to do is fill the vacant positions and prove that council and the mayor can get along. They have to see evidence of these two things before they will even consider going to the board and asking for an extension of insurance. And so we had talked about, okay, well, the mayor has candidates to bring forward that we were going to discuss, and that is how the candidates for the vacant positions got put on to our special meeting. Is because in that meeting, it was asked if we could please expedite this process to get the situation moving forward, because I'm sure, as everybody knows, we are on a very, very tight timeline. December 31st is the end of our insurance. And I'm not even sure, I asked them if we would be able to get insurance, or they made it very clear, just because we fill all the positions and it looks like council is getting along, that does not guarantee they will extend our insurance. They made that very clear. It is not a guarantee. They have to have positive things to take back to the board. Now, they also did say they don't want to lose us. They want to keep us in the pool. But we have to remember that the things that are going on right now are a huge risk to all the other cities that are in that pool. And it's hard to keep us in there. So to extend or to renew our contract, there has to be a lot of change taking place in the city very quickly. The other thing that was brought up was mediation. Now, council, I believe it was about a month and a half ago, did agree on a mediation through the suburban cities. Deanna then tried to contact the mayor and had not heard back from him. But there has been conversation since then with the mayor and suburban cities, and I had reiterated that yes, council is still on board with mediation. And so she was going to go, Deanna Dawson, the suburban cities would go back to King County and try to get this set up. Since then, I have not heard back. This has not been set up yet. But the mayor in that meeting did state 100% he is in favor of mediation, and council has already agreed to mediation, so that's another step. So I believe that by filling the vacant positions, council and the mayor showing that they are working together, trying to move the city forward, going through mediation, we have a good chance of getting an extension, but it is not a guarantee. They made that very clear. So that was what happened with that meeting. So moving forward, we still have timeline issues to deal with. We don't have insurance as of December 31st, as it is right now. That is our concrete information. So we have a couple different things here. A resolution that we'd like to move forward, and I'll let James speak on it since he wrote it. But one of those in asking basically other government agencies to help get the insurance at least extended, because our other option, if we do not have insurance, at least get it extended to a special election that would take place February 12th for disincorporation of the city of Pacific. That breaks my heart. I do not want to see that happen. But we have to protect ourselves. We need to find a way to protect the citizens of Pacific. So if we were able to get it on the docket, there's a timeline that we have to follow. It has to be approved by council 90 days prior to the special election. Now, if we approve it at our next meeting, it doesn't mean that it's automatically going to be on the docket February 12th for that special election. It just means that we've met the 90-day criteria. We can cancel it up to, I believe, December 28th, which by then we'll know if we're gonna have insurance. And so with that looming over us, basically we have to take all the steps because of the timelines that are involved to move forward, to somehow have Plan B in place if we do not have insurance. We have to think of Plan B. We have to think of the citizens and how to cover ourselves and or cover all of us. We all are at stake here, everything. All the services, there's different avenues that we've been looking at for other services, like who takes over the water. I've been asked personally by several citizens, what happens? What happens to me? What happens to the water December 31st? What happens to our police department? I mean, these are all valid questions, and you know what? We really don't have an answer. And when we go to MSRC or the Washington Association, they don't know either. This is uncharted territory. Nobody can give us an answer. What happens to the city when you run out of insurance? So I want it to be clear that council wants to do everything that they can to protect the city. The mayor has agreed to step up and work together with council, that we all come together for the sake of the citizens of Pacific and make this happen. By the things that we're doing as well, please keep in mind, it's also because of Plan B. We need to have another plan. We can't just assume everything's okay, because we do not know. We do not have a concrete answer, and the insurance company will not give us one today. Did you want to speak on your resolutions?
We move to go to.
We're not done.
We're not done?
No, we're not.
So if I can question?
Okay, go ahead. Question?
Well, to them, talk about resolutions. We're not going to bring up resolutions tonight, are we?
Yeah,
It's not on the agenda.
actually it is.
Insurance is on the agenda.
No, the insurance and the
It's all
discussion.
under that topic.
That was my understanding.
Okay.
And I didn't have a copy of this.
Does that answer your question?
I hear you. I don't necessarily agree, but just
Yeah.
like.
I didn't ask if you agree with it, I asked if it answered your question. I don't want
I
to go.
heard what you said.
Okay. Well,
Go ahead.
Talk.
so, as Leanne talked about, and we talked about a little bit at our last meeting, the only thing that we know is that as of December 31st, we run out of insurance. We talked a little bit last week about conversations that Leanne and I had with the staff attorneys at MRSC about what happens with our services when we run out of insurance. And again, the only answer that we really got to was our worst case scenario was that we existed and operated as a city without the insurance to cover the liabilities for our operations. So that's when we started looking at the timelines for disincorporation. If that was the only option on the table, what do those timelines look like? And Leanne's absolutely right. The earliest we could get a disincorporation measure on the ballot, because of course City Council cannot disincorporate, we can present the issue for our voters to consider. The earliest we could do that is the February 12th ballot. So absent a an angel insurer coming in, we know we're going to operate for at least, 33 days, 43 days without insurance. And so we can wait as long as 2 weeks from today before we enact that resolution to put it on the ballot. We have it on good legal authority that we can retract that and prevent it from going on the ballot as late as I think the 28th of December was the date that we looked at. And I think that's the best way for us to go, because we've got to act on the information that we know we have, the only thing that's certain. But the good news is we've got 2 weeks before we actually have to take that action. And so I've drafted here a resolution that will pass out, and I would hope that we consider an act tonight. I made 20 copies, so hopefully there's more than 20 people here, but I can read this, and it simply asks for, frankly, asks for help in getting insurance and asks for help for anybody that we can possibly imagine. And so I think I'll go ahead, having made a speech. Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I move adoption of the resolution? Maybe I'll move adoption of the resolution. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Pacific, Washington, requesting assistance from the Governor of the State of Washington. Whereas incorporated in 1909, the City of Pacific, a non-charter code city located in King County and Pierce County, has a long and reputable history of serving its citizens. And whereas the city's insurance carrier has notified the city that it will terminate insurance coverage effective January 1, 2013. And whereas the City Council of the City of Pacific has gone to great measure to resolve the concerns identified by its insurance carrier. And whereas the City Council of the City of Pacific believes that it has exhausted all options available to it, lacks the authority to resolve the concerns identified by the city's insurance carrier, and has been unable to secure insurance coverage effective January 1, 2013. And whereas the City Council of the City of Pacific, to the extent possible, has studied the consequences of operating without insurance coverage and fears that without proper insurance, the most responsible option available to the city is disincorporation. And whereas the City Council of the City of Pacific believes strongly that the challenges faced by the City of Pacific, though difficult, can be resolved. And whereas the City Council of the City of Pacific requires assistance from its local, state, and federal partners to overcome the immediate challenge of securing insurance coverage for city operations. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Pacific that the City of Pacific respectfully requests the Governor of the State of Washington make resources available to assist the city in securing proper insurance coverage for city operations. The City of Pacific respectfully requests the Insurance Commissioner of the State of Washington to make resources available to assist the city in securing proper insurance coverage for city operations. The City of Pacific respectfully requests the Attorney General of the State of Washington to make resources available to assist the city in securing proper insurance for city operations. The City of Pacific respectfully requests the United States Senator Patty Murray to make resources available to the city to assist in securing proper insurance coverage. You notice a pattern. And it goes on to ask U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell, U.S. Congressman Adam Smith, Washington State Senator Tracy Ide, Washington State Representative Mark Malosha, Washington State Representative Katrina Acey, King County, Pierce County, the Association of Washington Cities, the Cities Insurance Association of Washington, and directs that a complete copy of this resolution be immediately transmitted to the individuals and entities listed herein. So I move adoption of the amendment.
Second.
Second motion.
Do you not follow Robert's rules?
No, I didn't.
No, I think we'll discuss
Hey,
it.
why don't you handle it? I can't be in parliament.
So, as the maker of the motion, as I've mentioned, the resolution just simply asks for assistance in securing proper insurance coverage for city operations. It is frankly a desperate call for help, which I think we're desperately in need of. Our biggest obstacle that we need to get beyond is the insurance coverage. And so we ask everybody that we could think of who could possibly help, whether there is some unknown federal program that might be able to help insure us, if there's a state program, if there's a legislative program, if there's a county program, if there's an association program, whomever we could think of, we ask for help.
As the second, I would simply agree with all of that. We've been trying to work on this issue for months without success. It's time to say we really do need help.
I can't chair. You've got to chair.
I'll help you.
I'll help you. So you're looking for council debate or discussion.
Is there any council debate or discussion? No.
Comments from the audience?
Comments from the audience?
This may totally jeopardize my employment with you. However, as a parliamentarian and a city clerk, I feel it's prudent to advise you that the way your agenda is written for this item, it does not clearly state that you are doing a resolution and adopting or taking action at this meeting on this item. State law says that it has to be clearly stated on the agenda. So I would ask that you make a motion to postpone this to your November 13th meeting. It still falls within your 90 days. Thank you.
Is there any other comments?
This goes back to what I originally said. The resolutions were not listed. The original special meeting was to discuss the dissolution and the insurance issue, not to bring forward any action. You did not list the resolution actions on the agenda. You can discuss it, but we can't take action. And I believe it needs to go to workshop and then to the next meeting.
Discussion.
I agree with you because we're not prepared to, unless we go to workshop and put it on the agenda.
My suggestion is that it's an appropriate document to be discussed under the terms of disincorporation, but I believe to bring it forward to a vote would be inappropriate. Put it over.
From what I understand, we can table this until we go to workshop and for the next meeting.
It requires a motion.
Let's adjourn this and go ahead.
Would it be appropriate to just schedule a special meeting for next week to adopt this? I think it's time sensitive, and we're here next week anyway.
I can't make
Got this, man.
So you're asking for a special meeting, another special?
Should we just do a meeting if we want to adopt this, because there's another resolution coming that, right?
No, this is
it? Oh, never mind. I thought there was one. What do you know about?
So it seems to me then that we can just do a special meeting right after the workshop. If you want to take it to workshop and talk about it and do a special meeting right after the workshop to vote on this resolution, and it could be posted. Is that what you're saying, Tim?
Yeah.
Dean, I think by that point, I mean, I understand the concerns. I understand the concerns. I disagree with them. But I think by that point, we'll be a week prior before our last possible day to adopt a resolution for disincorporation. And I'd love to be able to ask for help before we say, let's disincorporate. But if that's the only option available to us, then let's do it. I disagree with the interpretation, but I'll live with it.
John?
Well, I understand the concern, and though we will have to vote on the disincorporation issue on our next meeting, council meeting, does not, again, dissolve the possibility that by December 28th, we can remove that from consideration. So I think, considering that we brought a resolution, we just move it forward to our meetings, and we still have time.
I believe there was additional request for public comment, and discussion on it.
Any public comment?
Dwayne Rotz, 122 3rd Avenue Northwest. This is really important. Isn't there another council meeting tomorrow? I saw posted.
Can't put it on
24 hours.
24 hours. Well, the way these go, why don't we start it at 8:30 tomorrow? Isn't that important enough that you could have your meeting at another meeting at 8:30 tomorrow? Since you're going to be here for an earlier meeting, it appears to have one item on the agenda right now. I mean, this seems, like you say, to be very important. It's a plea for help. Why don't we do this as soon as possible? Seems like you can get enough people together here for a meeting tomorrow at 6:30 to talk about a gun. That's all I saw on the agenda. Why can't we have a meeting tomorrow, another meeting? Have as many meetings as you need to move this forward as soon as possible. Doesn't make sense to wait another week, another 2 weeks to keep talking about this. We need help. You know, I don't know what the president's doing, but it seems like he's the only person you didn't add onto this list right now. So I guess maybe he's kind of busy with the storm and some other things going on. But please, try to do this as soon as possible. Thank you.
That's good.
Reba Bryant, could,
Come up.
well, I don't have that much to say.
Well,
I'm
I
sorry.
just want to know,
Read it for the
if
record.
I'm sorry, if you can't come up.
don't point that at me.
I'm sorry, you.
Don't
if you
shake
can't
that
come up.
gavel at me. Reba Bryant, I just want to know, a lot of us came here tonight, you don't have enough paperwork for everyone. If someone could go out and make copies so that we could all have a copy,
Yeah, I
so
think
we
there
can all be on the same page.
I think there were extra copies that went around.
Maybe when we're in executive session.
Sure.
I think you
It's going to be
want
a
to
job.
have a work session tomorrow. Or, excuse me, go ahead. We should move that.
Gary Van He, 205 Hawthorne Avenue, Pacific, Washington. I just wanted to let you know I have an awful lot of respect for process and for getting the agenda right and for doing the things, the business, according to the legal way that it should be done. I understand also that this is a time-sensitive thing, and I'm in support of it. So my question is, what are the risks if you vote on it? What if you may have done something technically wrong, but is it the right thing to do anyway? And what are the risks if you move forward with it?
Slippery slope.
Any other comments from the audience?
Gary Mitchell, 113 3rd Avenue Southeast. Follow up with what Gary just said. You have to follow proper procedure and law. Your legislatures must do it right.
Any other comment? I suggest that the council decide whether we should have a workshop immediately and attend to the problem immediately.
Make a motion to schedule a special meeting for the purposes of adopting this resolution tomorrow night at 8:30.
Second. It has been moved and second that tomorrow night at 8:30 we'll hold a council meeting for work session on that issue. Oh,
Does that give us enough time?
Gives us 20,
24 hours.
gotta be posted.
Yeah, that's what I worry about is, I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but I don't think it's 24 hours before we decide to meet. I think it's 24 hours before when we have to give the notice.
Well, it's the same difference because it's 24 hours from now.
Okay. As long as that'll work, I just want to make sure it'll work.
3 places.
Wednesday.
Halloween,
Halloween night.
Dress up.
Halloween night.
how long?
Do tomorrow.
Okay, suggestion of the date, time.
I'll bring it.
I'll modify it till Thursday at 6:30, but I may not be able to make it.
Say it again?
I'll modify my motion to Wednesday at 6. Thursday? It's a moving target.
Thursday, 6:30.
Thursday, 6:30.
I second the amendment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We move in second at Thursday and at 6:30.
I'm sorry.
We'll have
Now we need to vote on the motion.
Say again?
The amendment has been approved. Now we need to vote on the motion as amended.
We need to vote on the motion as amended.
That's what
We voted on the amendment, now we need to vote on the motion as amended.
we would handle that.
I don't think I can. I can tell you what to ask for. So we've amended the motion. Now you need to ask for discussion on the motion as amended.
Is there any good discussion to the motion?
Now we need audience comment. Audience comment.
Audience comment?
Now we can vote.
No, we'll vote. Roll call, Council.
Ken Walker.
Aye.
John Jones.
Aye.
Josh Putnam.
Aye.
James McMahon.
Aye.
Leanne Guier. Gary Holstein.
We'll move to the executive session for half hour.
There will be a vote.
Mr. Lewis, can you state for the record our purpose for convening to executive session?
The purpose of the executive session is to have a follow-up council meeting to discuss the qualifications of the previously submitted applicants for positions with the City of Pacific, with the exception of the Public Works Director.
What?